Welcome to this episode of the Local Matters Podcast of Georgia. We are here to inform people, help them become more confident voters and more engaged citizens. We invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel where we have lots of great content. We also ask you to follow us on Facebook and Instagram if you are on those platforms. Today, our very special guest is one of our commissioners. He is Mr. Jordan Johnson, and he's going to talk to us about the challenges of representing any commission district, but District 1 in particular. So we look forward to an excellent conversation with him. We're also going to hit real hard on some of these topics like storm debris removal that everybody has questions about. Thanks so much for being a part of our Local Matters family. Local Matters family, we have a special treat today, and that is in the form of the presence of one of our commissioners, Jordan Johnson, who represents District 1, which is, guess where who lives? District 1. We've had Jordan on before as a candidate, but this is the first time we've had him on as a commissioner. How you doing today, Commissioner?
I'm good. I'm a little cold, granted the weather we've been dealing with, but I feel good and happy to be on with you today.
Yep, it is a little nippy outside, but we Georgians complain, whatever it is, it's too hot, it's too cold. We
Yeah.
never get snow. We get snow. It's slippery. I mean, just
Yeah.
we always have something to complain about. But thanks so much for joining Local Matters today. I'm really excited to talk to you about a number of topics, and we're just going to have a conversation, which I find is the best way many times to get the most interesting things out of our episode. So first, I want to ask this question, which I always love to ask elected officials, and that is, why did you run for office to begin with?
I ask myself that all the time. I was 25, and the District 1 seat became open, and I had always had this, I guess I can say I had always had this itch to get involved in politics. I was chairman of the Young Democrats at the time. I was chair of the Democratic Party. I had served as, Northeast Region Director and political director for the party. So I was always involved in politics and government to a degree, but I thought that I could make a difference, basically. So, the neighborhood that my mom grew up in, East Augusta, the neighborhood that my grandmother raised my mom, my great grandmother lived, I just thought that I could make a change. I looked around the neighborhood and saw that the same neighborhood that existed when I was a kid, coming up in the late 90s and early 2000s, was the same area that was there, 20 years later. And it wasn't a knock on anybody, because now that I'm in office, I understand how hard it is to get things done. But I just thought I could make a difference. And so I went to my mom one day and told her that I was getting ready to run for the District 1 commission seat. I had $750 in my pocket, and I found me a nice house to rent in Eastview, because I always wanted to live back in that neighborhood, because I heard a lot about how doctors and lawyers and just professionals live there. And I wanted to be a part of that. So God is so good. I found a home there, and the rest was history. I just thought I could give back and do a good job at it. So I'm proud that I did that.
Well, good. Lots of things I could say because, of course, my father was one of the original homeowners in Hornsby Subdivision,
Yeah.
The historic Hornsby Subdivision, founded in 1953. My father bought his house in 1955, and I have always been connected to the neighborhood. There are a lot of things that shaped me as a young person, and one of the best things that ever happened to me was being exposed to East Augusta and all of the people who were there at that time. You mentioned professionals, everybody from Jack Ruffin, who the courthouse is now named
He lived
after.
in Eastview?
He lived not in Eastview, but one of the other subdivisions. I think Sunlight Park, maybe right off of
Really?
East Boundary.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jack Ruffin and his family lived there until the late 70s.
Wow.
Yeah,
I had no idea.
I was talking to Mrs. Ruffin. She's still around town, still active and about. We were talking one day, and she told me, yeah, that's where we raised our son.
I had no idea.
So, yes, he was there. Dr. Allen Brown, father of Russell Joel Brown.
Yeah.
They lived a couple of streets over from me. school principals,
Yeah.
teachers,
I know Senator
business
Walker
owners.
and Rosa Williams, Bishop Williams.
Yes, all lived in
Yeah.
Eastview subdivision as well. So yes, East Augusta has a proud history,
Yeah.
and as I like to say, not quite everybody, but just about anybody who has made a mark on Augusta has some history with East
They came
Augusta.
out of East Augusta.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So, absolutely loved my time there, and that's why I chose to still live there and,
Yeah.
been involved in some renovation efforts in the area, and we look forward to doing some more,
Yeah.
because that's our home base and it
Yeah.
made us who we are.
Yeah.
So, I love having been nurtured
I grew
in
up
that
learning
type of
about East
environment.
Augusta. My grandmother was in, so my great grandma, my aunts, my mom, and my grandmother all lived in Oak Point, which
Mhm.
then was Delta Manor.
Mhm.
We used to always hang around in the bottom, right, as they
Mhm.
call it. I
I
hate
hate
that
that.
nickname.
I hate
I
that.
hate it,
I
but it's
don't
the
allow
foundation.
I
So I
don't
don't,
I don't allow anybody to use that in my
I hate
presence.
it.
So
I hate
so
it. I
so
hate
no.
it. But no, I learned about, just that history. My sister went to Hornsby and so you know what? This is where I want to be.
Mhm.
And all of the
Yeah.
negative connotations around the neighborhood, that's just not real. They're
No,
not
not at all.
there. No.
Not at all.
I enjoyed living there.
I had somebody who ran for another office, told me he and his wife were out campaigning in the neighborhood, and she said, "Is this what people call the bottom?" And he said, "Yeah, this is it." He said, "This neighborhood's gotten a bad rap.
Yeah.
That's doesn't reflect
Right.
what's here. Still a lot of pride and
Yeah.
ownership. Used to be, not quite now, but we had like the highest voting percentages. Our folks turned out at the
Oh
polls,
yeah.
very civically
Hmm.
engaged. So yeah, there's a lot to be proud of in
Yeah.
East Augusta. So I
Well,
will not leave.
no. Well, it's still true that if you lose 104, you lose the election in District 1.
Hmm.
And so, but that neighborhood is just so important and it's so, it's just the history that it presents. You can't deny it. You just
No,
really can't deny it.
great place to be.
Yeah.
Great place to be. So I want to back up some
Okay.
though. You said that yes, you were always interested in seeking office, were involved in Democratic Party politics. How'd you get involved in Democratic Party politics when you were a youngster? What age
Yeah.
were you when you
Oh
started getting
man.
involved, and what was the door that opened that led you in that
I
direction?
was in the 10th grade and we had a program at our school in the gym. It was hosted by the Jobs for Georgia Graduates.
Hmm.
And the guest speaker was Senator Hardy Davis.
Okay.
And he came into the auditorium, into the gym, and I remember this day very well. I was sitting up in the nosebleed, so to speak, on the right
Hmm.
hand side of the gym, all the way at the top, and me and a couple of friends. And I was just goofing off, and he walked into the gym, and he had on this suit and tie, and I mean, it's like every piece of his suit was in place,
Hmm.
every hair was in place. He walked like just smooth as butter. I'm like, if I wasn't paying attention before then, I was paying attention when he walked in that gym. And he gave a speech, and I remember the speech really talking about being involved civically and knowing that when you get out of high school, you have to have a future and you need to start talking about your future and thinking about your future. I was in the 10th grade. I didn't think about my future and I didn't really
Hmm.
care at that point, honestly. I was a good student, but I played a lot because
Hmm.
it's high school. It's 10th grader
Yeah.
don't play a lot.
Yeah.
But I started to pay attention at that point. Um, and so fast forward, he had a church near my home where we were
Hmm.
living. And my stepdad used to go to the church on and off. And when I found out that he was the pastor of that church, I I started going to Bible study.
Hmm.
And I told my dad that my stepdad that I wanted to meet him. And long story short, I met him, went into his office, had a conversation with him, and that was just it. In that moment, I knew that I wanted to attempt to follow through with what I heard him say.
Mhm.
And then a few years later, um, a pothole at the intersection of Old Waynesboro Road and Brown Road became just unbearable. Your car could not your car couldn't survive it if you wanted it to.
Mhm.
And so I reached out to a commissioner because another commissioner came to my school and pretty much told us that if you needed, support or whatever, just let us know. I followed him on Facebook and I was able to help get the pothole fixed. And it felt good. I was able to connect with a commissioner, to communicate with that commissioner. We went back and forth a little bit. It wasn't easy. Like today, we served together. Today,
Mhm.
I was a senior in high school then. Now I'm on the commission with them
Mhm.
now. We went back and forth then. We go back and forth now. But the point is that started it. So then I wanted to get involved. So I researched the Democratic Party in Augusta. I met Lowell Greenbaum. I met L.C. Miles and Terrence Dix, and they kind of voluntold me to be involved with the Young Democrats, and from
Mhm.
there just kind of went from there, and I've enjoyed it ever since. But it all
Okay.
started from just being in school, watching a state senator come speak to me, connecting with an elected official in the form of a commissioner, and then making that next step to figure out how to get more involved in the process. And so I don't take any of those, occurrences lightly because they help shape me.
Okay. All right. Now, you mentioned going to Bible study. Did I hear at one point that you were involved in ministry
I
as
was,
well?
yes, I still am. So not as involved as I was before, but um I became an ordained minister at the age of, let's see if I can remember. I was baptized at 9. I preached my first sermon at 12. And then I was actually ordained by my pastor at about maybe 19, 20, 21ish, somewhere around there. Not sure.
You preached your first sermon when you were
I was 12
12.
years old.
Is
This
this on video somewhere?
somewhere, but I can't find it.
You
I can't find it.
can't find it?
No, I can't.
Oh,
But the sermon was about the prodigal son.
no. Mhm.
And about how no matter how many times you mess up, you can always come home. You can
Mhm.
always that was my first sermon. I was 12 years old, and I remember my teachers came, and we went to we went to Ryan's afterwards on Peach Orchard
Mhm.
Road
Mhm.
to
When
celebrate
Ryan's was
when
on
Ryan's
Peach
was open.
Yeah,
Yeah,
uh-huh.
yeah.
Okay.
But my faith has always been my foundation.
Okay. So, you have always been a precocious child. You preach a sermon at 12.
Mhm.
You're ordained
20
by
something, yeah.
your time you're 20 or so,
Mhm,
2021.
mhm,
Uh, you then became the youngest elected
mhm,
official in the
mhm,
history of the Augusta
mhm.
Commission. Is that
Yep.
right?
Yeah, I went up against AK Hassan, and I think I got
Mhm.
him by, like, maybe a month or 2.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
when I became the youngest, I called him, and, I thanked him for his support, and, we kinda go back and forth on this joke about how it was, like, a month or 2, um, difference between my 25 and his 25,
Okay.
or my
So
26 and his 26, one of
so
those.
now you've done all of these things at incredibly young
Mhm.
ages. What's next? Are you gonna become the youngest governor in the history of
I
Georgia?
don't know. I don't know. Listen, when people ask what's next, I say I go from nap to nap. So
Mhm.
I don't know what's next is enjoying the rest of this evening. But no,
Mm,
I don't really think about the next political move. I have this
mhm,
process. I have this thought
mhm.
that if I start thinking about what's next politically, what I do now will somewhat be guided by that next political
Yeah,
move. And then
yeah,
you lose your authenticity. You lose the I guess the integrity of what you're doing now if you're always thinking about that next step. So I never wanted
yeah.
to be a commissioner. I never wanted to do it. But then when the opportunity came up, I felt like God, put the fire in me to do it.
Mhm.
So I figure if anything else is coming next, my faith will guide me and we'll go from there, but I'm not thinking about
Okay.
that.
Alrighty. I just
I go
figured,
from Tuesday to
when you
Tuesday.
start a reputation like that, you
Yeah.
just kind of figure out what the next step is. And as you talk about what you've done and running for office, the first time you ran, seems like there were a bunch of folks in the race. I
Mhm.
don't remember, but
There's
it was
4 people, I
four
believe.
in the race,
Either 4 or
and you
5.
wind up having to go to a runoff.
Mhm.
The second time, there were a number of people who were surprised that that one did not go into a runoff.
Mhm.
I mean, everybody knew you were running against a former commissioner
Yeah.
in a very diverse
Mhm.
district,
Mhm.
and everybody just knew that race was going to a runoff.
Yeah.
How did you make sure it didn't?
Well, number 1, I give all glory and honor to God. Secondly, I know for a fact that what the people want, they will tell you. The interest that they have, they will share it with you, and then they'll hold you accountable to that. My first 4 years in office were all about getting to know my constituents, hearing their concerns, doing everything that I could
Mhm,
to meet the needs that they had, somewhat meet that moment. And we delivered on a lot that first 4 years,
mhm,
from getting uh, a grocery store contract signed, to getting parts renamed, to starting the East Augusta drainage project over on the Brunswick and Albany side. It was funded years before I got in, but when I took office, I did everything in my might to make sure that we began the project. We were able to go up in Sand Hills and renew its redevelopment master plan. And some of the work that we needed to get done was getting started. We paved dozens of roads. We cut down dozens of dead trees that needed to come down. We knocked down almost 400 blighted properties in our district. And that didn't happen just because I rode around and said, "Hey, I think we should do this today." The people told me what they wanted, and I took it serious. And so when it was time for reelection, I didn't approach it from the position of, "Hey, look at what we did," although you have to remind people
Mhm,
from time to
mhm.
time.
You do.
But my message was simple. Look at the progress that we were able to accomplish. Look at the progress we were able to make together. All I'm saying is, let's just keep going. We're not done. We're just getting started. And so it was a long race. It was We had 5 people in the race. One person
Mhm.
dropped out, but their
Yeah.
name was still on the
Still
ballot.
on the ballot.
Um, but I mean, the progress that we made for homelessness and downtown development and just you name it,
Mhm.
I think the people of our district understood that they have a commissioner that don't mind working for them. And I spent a lot of time working in this district, but I believe ultimately it was just a relationship that we were able to build together.
Okay. Thank you for that. One of the things that I will point out, as I recall, your very effective use of social media.
Mhm.
I mean, I woke up this morning, first post I saw
Really?
was, no, it was yesterday.
Uh-huh.
First post I saw was Jordan Johnson talking about closings and what was gonna be open and when the commission meeting had been
Mhm.
moved to and all of that stuff. So, I think in today's day and age, more people are looking at social media than they are watching the
Right.
news.
Right.
And I also thought that that was a factor,
Yeah.
in your win there. So, you run second time, easily get in. What's the hardest thing about being a candidate? I would always think it's raising money, but you tell me, what's the hardest part about being a
Um,
candidate?
the hardest part about being a candidate is not losing sight of why you're running. The money will come to you. If you have a good platform and you're not afraid to ask for the dollars, the money will come to you. Both races in 2020 and 2024, I was outraised. I
Mhm.
was
Oh,
never I,
really?
yeah, I
Really? You were not the leading
no, I
fundraiser?
think I
Okay.
was a leading fundraiser at one point in
Mhm,
2020. I think the
mhm,
first disclosure, I had the
mhm,
most money. But every disclosure after that, I was outraised. Michael Thurman outraised me in
mhm,
2020. Matt Aiken outraised me in
mhm.
24. So the money's going to come, but the people decide elections, not the money. I think the hardest part is not losing focus of why you're doing what you're doing, because knocking on doors is not an easy task and it's not fun, especially when you're getting you don't know what's on the other side of that door. Everyone don't love you. And sometimes when you're knocking on doors to ask for votes and someone tells you no, they will tell you why. And that sometimes can hurt your feelings.
Mhm.
Making phone calls is not an easy task either. But you have to remember that you're running for a purpose. You're running for the people. If you're running for the right reason, everything else just becomes secondary.
Okay.
So I think that's the hardest part, just at least in my mind, is not losing sight, because there'll always be people to tell you that you can or you shouldn't or remind you of what you've done wrong. I got it all the time, but you can't lose sight, can't lose
Yeah.
focus.
So that's the hardest part about running for office. What's the hardest part about being in office?
All right, so the hardest part for me about being in office has just simply been um, digging through the processes of getting things done. Right, it's not as easy as folks think. Even if you have the 6 votes necessary to get something done, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to get done. Uh, I think for me, the hardest part has always just been navigating the process. So, for instance, if there's a house right now on Aiken Street, it's been empty for at least 4 years.
Mhm.
The windows are knocked out of it. It's a nuisance to the neighborhood, and folks continue to call. And I've been fighting for the last 4 years to get that house boarded up or demolished. But now there's a hiccup in the court system. There's a hiccup in the planning department. There's a hiccup with code enforcement. And it may take you a little bit longer time to navigate those hiccups. But I think that's the hardest part outside of the politics. I mean, you can have a good idea put on the table on Monday, and by Friday, it's the worst thing that anybody's ever heard of because of how politics tends to happen. People will spin your ideas or spin your words or whatever, but again, we don't get caught up in that. I think the biggest thing for me is just navigating some of these processes and trying to track down the
Processes
dollars to do things
and
and
bureaucracy and all
yeah,
that. All right,
red tape.
you mentioned one thing, that I'm gonna hold your feet to the fire. I'm
Okay,
being a good commission a
let's do
big
it.
good constituent. I want an East Augusta redevelopment
You're
plan,
gonna get it
just like
too.
Sand Hills
You're
has.
gonna get it. You're gonna get it. That was a cornerstone of my reelection. I stood at the East Augusta Neighborhood Association meeting and promised two things. I promised that we would attempt to address our speeding issues in
Mhm,
East Augusta along Aiken Street and Eastview Drive. There's a traffic study being done right now to look at those two
mhm,
roads to see if we can put either speed bumps up or if we can put up the speed monitoring beacons.
mhm,
So that's in the process now. And then I talked about a redevelopment plan as well, because the work that the Cherry Avenue organization
mhm,
did is just phenomenal. And you were a part of that. You pretty much took that and ran with it. And so
mhm.
I am in support of an East Augusta development plan because we need it. I think that
Yeah,
the same thing that folks have in downtown and other sides of town, they deserve to have in East Augusta as well. We shouldn't have to go to another side of town just to have a nice
right.
meal.
Exactly, and for us, as we look at redevelopment and just filling everybody, it's Cherry Avenue Revitalization
Yeah.
Enterprises. We acquired a house on Cherry Avenue. We've now acquired a few lots through the Land Bank
Mhm.
Authority. We've acquired 3 more lots in
Mhm.
Hornsby subdivision to redevelop. It just helps when we're trying to bring folks in to either purchase the house or to rent the house. It helps to be able to say, hey, this is coming for the area and there's going to be infrastructure
Yeah.
investment.
Yeah.
And we believe that we're going to be a safer
Yeah.
neighborhood. We have to let people know that there are things on the horizon
Mhm.
so that the neighborhood does not continue to decline. I
Right.
mean, frankly, we've gone from a situation where it was 100% African American homeowners
Mhm. Mhm.
to now, don't know exactly, but I bet you at least 50% of the properties are rented out,
Yeah.
probably more than that.
Mhm.
And it when you don't have an owner occupied neighborhood, things just change.
Yeah.
Things
And
just
I think
change.
that speaks a lot to just where we are with the housing market in
Mhm.
general. I always talk about how much of a jewel the East Augusta community
Mhm.
is, but we still have to address East Boundary. You have
Mhm.
to
We still
address
have to,
that one road.
and I will be completely honest, when we look at redevelopment, we try to stay away from East Boundary
Mhm. Mhm.
because it's not where we want it to be.
Mhm.
When I walk down East when I drive down East Boundary, I see folks walking with their pants hanging
Mhm.
down, and I'm
Mhm.
like, "Gosh, is there some job training program I can get these dudes
But you
into?"
know what? That's something that we talk about all the time. Is that this one road in Augusta is filled with so many different stories, so
Mhm,
many different backgrounds, so much. I don't want to call it wealth because it's not wealth in the sense of monetary wealth, but I think it's wealth in the sense of just the diversity of what
mhm,
you come in touch with. It's so much opportunity on East Boundary, with the public housing and just the need for quality and affordable grocery stores. The vision for Augusta, where affordable housing and access to grocery and healthcare and everything can be envisioned on that one strip, that one street, from the Marylands down to the Old
mhm,
Smile gas station. So that one road, in my mind, is not it's not a burden. It is not a problem. It's an opportunity to really highlight what can be done in the city of Augusta if we are intentional about solving some of the more pressing issues in our community, like poverty, like affordable housing, like access to quality education, quality healthcare, quality groceries, infrastructure renewal. I think Betty Beard, former Commissioner Betty
mhm,
Beard, and her husband Lee Beard were onto something when they decided to pave that road and put lights up a
mhm. And
decade or
they
so ago.
widened it, you're
Wind
right.
it up. They were
Got
onto
bike
something.
lanes now,
Yeah.
yeah,
So we have to
they
continue that
they
work.
they were onto something, and I will also say this is one of my side notes. I don't think Betty Beard gets enough credit for her tenure on
No,
the
she doesn't.
commission. I really don't think she gets enough credit for the
No.
things that we got accomplished. But yes, if we can get East Boundary cleaned up,
Mhm.
so to speak, the apartment complex now Magnolia, something,
Magnolia
something.
Court.
Yeah, it looks a lot better
Yeah.
than it did previously. But you got this huge vacant lot over
Mhm.
there.
Mhm.
Something has to get done with that
Yeah.
vacant lot. You've got, I see the folks at the IGA, looks like they've made some
Yeah.
improvements. I think they're back open now. But there's just the yellow store where, it's somebody told
Someone
me
just bought the Yellow Store.
somebody bought it.
They bought
Really?
it. Yeah.
Somebody told me in fact, Harold Jones, when he was solicitor, he said, "Nothing good ever happened at the Yellow Store."
We
It
know the
just
stores by their color in East Augusta,
yeah.
gray, yellow, and red, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's is an awful lot of
Yes.
potential, and it's a gateway to downtown.
Yes. Yes.
You think about the big vacant lot that I was talking about, where the Greens restaurant used to be when I was a little girl.
Yeah.
That was where the businessmen from downtown came to have lunch.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
That it was a high class restaurant. Business deals took place in
Wow.
there. So we've moved away, and we gotta find a way to bring some
Right.
of the glory back. Because you think about the natural assets.
Mhm.
One of the reasons that I moved back to Hornsby subdivision was that when I was working at the municipal building, well, it's 5 minutes from my
5 minutes
house.
out. Yeah. Yeah.
I can get to Interstate 520 in 90
Yeah.
seconds,
Yeah.
pretty much,
Yeah.
and you can get anywhere from 520. So
Mhm.
you've got 520, and then you've got the riverfront, and
That's right.
typically, when you're living with that proximity to a riverfront, that's gonna be considered high class
That's
property.
yep.
So there are just so many assets that have to be
Yeah.
capitalized on, but that redevelopment plan is very important
For
for us
sure.
to be able to pull all those pieces
For
together.
sure. I've had conversations, extensive conversations about what the off ramps could look like
Mhm,
making our redevelopment plan central to the off ramps or the on ramps, however you want to refer
mhm,
to them, but coming off of the Aiken Augusta Highway into East Augusta.
mhm,
That's a prime location for us to create a welcome mat. Folks are using Sandbar Ferry Road to get to SRS every
mhm,
day to get into
mhm.
South Carolina and back,
Sandbar Ferry or
or
Laney
Laney
Walker. Some
Extension.
people come down Laney Walker Extension,
So there's
exactly.
such opportunity there. And I'm always sensitive about doing these types of things because we don't want to leave anyone behind. We don't want to push anyone out of the neighborhoods. We don't want to gentrify communities
Mhm,
intentionally. But I think where East Augusta is concerned, um, Dr. King spoke about that check that returned insufficient funds. I believe that the East Augusta community has been a recipient of insufficient funds for quite some time. And I think a lot of it is just because the issues that we're dealing with in the neighborhood are just too hard and they're too expensive to address. But imagine what we could accomplish if we, put a little elbow grease into helping
mhm.
those who are living on East Boundary. The crosswalk mural was amazing, was a
Oh,
great
yeah, I love that
project.
project, and you
It's
know
a
what?
great project.
I love that project so much that when they ran out of money, I started texting I went on Facebook and started texting my neighbors, say, "Hey, can you donate
I
50 bucks
was
so
so
they can
worried
finish
about
this
that.
thing?"
Yeah.
"Oh, no, no, we made sure it got finished."
I was so worried that that project was gonna stall.
"No, no, no, we
But
got finished because we believe in," and they delivered,
yeah.
you
You were
know?
at the block party.
Yeah, I was there, uh-huh.
Imagine us doing that again. The
Mhm,
first East Augusta block party, which was a resource affair, you had folks from the neighborhood creating the crosswalk that was an ode to the history of the neighborhood. I believe one side of the crosswalk um, was promoting unity, and the other
mhm.
side promoting nonviolence. I think that the opportunities to really take that one strip and apply whatever vision we have for our city to that one road, I mean, the possibilities would be just exponential for
Mhm.
those
Okay.
families.
All right. Well, I'm holding your feet to the fire. You
Please.
got it. It's on
It's on
record.
camera. It's on camera. Imma need you to come to the meeting when I present it.
Thank you. Thank you. Be more than happy to speak in favor of. Let's talk some about the diversity of
Mhm.
District 1 because, we focused on East
Yeah.
Augusta because that's my part
Yeah.
and that's where your family has roots.
Mhm.
But District 1 is a shockingly diverse
It is.
district.
Mhm.
And I know it probably poses some challenges to
Mhm.
represent so many different
Mhm.
constituencies. Can you just address how you've had to go about that?
Yeah, so the district is the most diverse district in our community. I will challenge anyone who says otherwise. You have poverty, you have wealth. You
Mhm,
have your central business district, you have your entertainment districts. You have majority of your history there, you have your hospitals, you have many of your money-making enterprises, the
mhm,
airport, the riverfront,
mhm,
the cyber center. I think the challenges that have been presented because of that are are not really unique to anything other than folks have different interests and they want to be represented the same.
mm.
They want their voices heard. They want you to sit down and listen to them. I may be dealing with a family of a teen who was shot in East Augusta, which we know that was a
Yeah,
reality,
we've had that
on the
happen.
same day that I'm dealing with something as simple as a zoning request from a business owner and to put some type of real estate venture from someone who's
Mm.
probably a little bit more affluent. There's so much diversity and so many issues that we're having to address, somewhat simultaneously, because of the diversity in the neighborhood. But I think that's a strength because I'm able to understand, the strength in diversity, the fact that everyone uh, has needs and they just really want to be represented. I have the arts community. We have any community you can think of is represented in District 1. And I'm having to really morph from neighborhood to
Right,
neighborhood to help with
right.
those interests. And no, we all don't agree on how things should get done, but I always commit to sitting down with my constituents and talking to them through their issues and trying to represent them as best as I can.
Okay. And just for the uninitiated, if you could describe sort of the
Yeah.
boundaries of District 1, it would help people understand what you just said.
So if you look at District 1, you go from let's start up near Augusta University. You have Augusta University is one district, but the left side of the road, if you're facing downtown, so if Augusta University is on your right hand side on Walton Way,
Mm.
the left side of the road is District 1. And you take that all the way downtown, you get Richmond Academy, Harrisburg, keep going down. You have Laney Walker, East Augusta, and then you pick up downtown. Um,
And you
that's
go to the South Carolina
We
line,
go to the
right?
South Carolina line. The district goes out to the airport. So if you take Doug Bernard, Molly Pond, Gordon Highway up by the fairgrounds, that whole area, all the way up to the airport, that's District 1. If you cross White Paget Highway and go up towards Castle Pines, that's District 1.
Mhm.
So it's like a somewhat like a lowercase b, so to speak, if you think about
Okay.
it.
I gotta think
If you
about that.
if you pick
Okay.
up from the airport and you come down and you get all of
Mhm,
the central part of Augusta up
mhm,
into parts of the hill,
mhm.
that's District 1.
Okay.
I hope I described that right. I know I
Yeah.
probably didn't,
And
but
how far do you pick up MLK?
no, that's District 2.
That is District 2
But
at
Twig
MLK.
Circle is District 1. So we
Okay.
we cut off right around Twig Circle.
Okay.
We have the Bethlehem community.
Mhm.
So all of Bethlehem, all of Laney Walker is District 1, but MLK and the avenues are District 2.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So, and Olive Road
Olive Road is District
is
1.
District 1 now. Okay.
Glendale, the
Okay.
Olive Road Bridge is
The
District 1.
Olive Road Bridge.
I look at it as schools. So Josie, Laney, Richmond, those are
Mhm.
District 1 schools. Davidson is a District 1 school. C.T. Walker is a District 1
Mhm.
school. So those schools are in the
And
district.
so which means you also have some of the best schools and some of the most
Yeah,
challenged schools.
yeah.
A.R. Johnson, of course,
A.R.
would be in there
Johnson.
as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All righty. Thanks for explaining that because I know sometimes it's kind of hard
It's
for people to
hard. Yeah.
understand exactly what the boundaries
Yeah.
are. And as we start talking about district boundaries, of course, we can't avoid talking about the hurricane
Yeah.
that came through at
Mhm.
the end of September and the notion of debris pickup.
Mhm.
Recently, Local Matters, we did a show. We had a representative from FEMA who reached out to me and said, "Hey, I want to talk about the FEMA application process and making sure people know deadlines February 7th,
Mhm.
making sure people know who should come in, get registered, and what possible things you could qualify for." And the thing, of course, that FEMA doesn't handle is debris pickup because
Mhm.
that's on the local government. That is a
Mhm.
local government service to take care of that. And folks are fed up with debris pickup.
Yeah. I'm
I mean,
folks.
yeah, I'm
I'm
folks.
folks. Yeah.
I District 1, obviously, I was talking to a friend who lives in District 8 a couple of days ago, and she's ready to tell all y'all to put on your work boots and come out to her neighborhood and start picking up the
Yeah.
trash
Yeah.
because it's been sitting out there for months.
Yeah.
And I think initially we were told it would be a 3-month process to
Mhm.
get it, and, now we're beyond that and
Yeah.
da, 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 da. Will this stuff get picked up? When is it gonna get picked up?
Well, I wish I had a magic snow globe, right, to tell me that. But what I do know is that we've been working around the clock to make sure that our neighborhoods do get the pickup. But I have been incredibly frustrated as well. I mean, even when the hurricane first hit, you know, I know that we were somewhat scrambling because Augusta is never really prepared for these types of disasters because we get them so so randomly.
Mhm.
We don't frequently have hurricanes
Mhm.
to this degree in Augusta. But what that hurricane showed me more than anything was just that there was so much need in our community, from, people needing water and food and just basic necessities like milk for their babies and just everything. There's a need
Mhm.
in our community, and we need to start paying more attention to the needs of the people who are living in poverty and who have no other options than to have this public assistance. That's a different story. We'll get back to that one day, but that hurricane showed me that more than anything else. But with the debris pickup, um, we have debris haulers in place. We have firms that's helping us monitor the debris. But I don't want people to be frustrated. But how can they not be frustrated when they come outside and see this debris in front of their homes every day, and they're constantly being told, "Well, something is coming and something is coming," and then they see something on Facebook saying that the city is coming up to the end
The
stages of
final
the final
pass.
pass, the end stages of debris pickup, and nothing has happened. And so we have had to go to bat for communities in East Augusta, in Central Augusta, in South Augusta. We have had to go to bat for these communities to make sure that the debris is picked up in a timely manner. We've worked with our administrator and some of our contractors to create a schedule now. So we're going to
Oh,
be
there's a schedule
there's a
now?
schedule now.
Woohoo!
Thank God there's a schedule. They're going to be picking up debris based off of your voting precinct. And so districts 1 and district 7 are being taken care of, I think this week.
Mhm.
And then following that, you have another district. You have 2 districts at a time based off of
Okay.
voting precincts. And so the whole key here is just to make sure that you're not feeling as though just because you don't live in one side of town that you're not important. Although that's how some folks that I talked to felt. But having a schedule in place, a process in place is key, which is, something that we should have had done in the very
Yeah,
first
from the
thing,
very
from the very
beginning. I
jump.
mean, this has appeared so haphazard.
Mhm.
Because even driving through some sections of the same subdivision,
Yeah.
I mean, I have a couple friends that live in Valley Park, and I would go visit them, and some sections of Valley Park look like nothing happened, and some of them are absolutely
Yeah.
atrocious.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
tree stumps and
Yeah.
trees everywhere.
Yeah. Now, I will say the stumps are gonna be the last thing to be picked up,
Okay,
and so they have a special term for them, but those
okay,
stumps will be the last thing to be
okay.
picked up. But nothing frustrated me more than going into a neighborhood and seeing one part of someone's, area in front of their yard
Mhm.
picked up, and then the rest of the neighborhood just still filled with
That's
debris.
exactly what's happening in
So
Valley
I
Park.
know that it's a process, and that, I couldn't put myself in the position of the folks who are doing this job. We've picked up thousands and thousands and thousands of yards of debris and what have you. I mean, we're getting the work done, but it's hard to see it. It's hard to notice that when it's so scattered. It's just like our
Mhm.
blight program. It's just like
Exactly.
our housing program. We're doing it, but it's not consolidated. And so I think that this plan, making sure that we're going precinct to precinct, is going to consolidate how we pick up our debris, so that the community can see that we're actually working.
Yeah, working in a way that makes sense. 'Cause like I
Right.
said, it just looked haphazard.
Yeah.
The and it's like, how do we function like this? I
Hmm.
know that can't be the most efficient way to do it.
Right.
Go into an
Right.
area, take care of it, and keep moving and let us know. Just let me
Right.
know when you're coming.
I'm getting so many calls about debris. It's a shame,
Yes.
but it's to be expected.
It's
Yeah.
sort of like Uber.
Yeah.
Uber works. Everybody likes it because you can look at the little app and it tells you where the vehicle is and if it's going to be 10 minutes, if it's gonna be 8 minutes, if
Yeah.
they're delayed, you get updates.
Yeah.
You know what car's coming, you know what the driver's name is, you know what his license plate is, you know what's happening so you can
Yeah.
live with it. We haven't known what was happening with the debris pickup.
Some of your commissioners have not known what's happening with debris pickup, and I'm just gonna let that one marinate for a while.
Okay. Do you think others of them did know?
Absolutely.
Really?
100%.
Okay.
100%. I mean, I could pull my phone out and prove to you that that's 100%. And I don't want to be the guy that's known for spreading the conspiracy theories,
Mhm.
or putting neighborhoods against each other, because that's not what I'm doing. But the point is, we have had to really get into the weeds of things just to make sure that our neighborhoods got their debris picked up. You know, Folks who are watching this can't see my shoes, but I have on
Mhm.
my work shoes. My dirty shoes is what I call them. Because before coming here, I was up in Sand Hills making sure that Fitton Street had their debris picked up. Something that I have been wrestling with since before the Christmas holiday. The day after Christmas, we went in the neighborhood to look at the debris to see if we can get it picked up. And today, a month later, it's picked up. So, it's just it has to take hard work. You have to hold your commissioners accountable and responsible. And you have commissioners who are ready and willing to get in the dirt with you. But you've got to call your commissioners. You have to make them aware. Just like my constituents did for me. I know that there are commissioners who are doing the same. But um, there has been, some information gaps there for sure.
Okay. All righty. But it's gonna get picked up, and how do we find out what the schedule is? What's the
So
best way for us to know that?
best way to know is to follow the Augusta, Georgia government Facebook page.
Mhm.
That's where we're putting all of the updates for debris pickup schedule and any other city updates as well. You can go to the Augusta, Georgia government Facebook page. And if you have any debris that you need to be picked up and you want to report it to the city, just call 311 or put it into my 311 app, and then it'll get into a queue, so to speak, to be picked up.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you for that. Um, Next thing, we just got a few minutes left for
Yeah.
this interview. 2025 stands to be a big year, I think, for the city of Augusta and the commission. Any big items you want us to particularly be looking out for, things that we should pay particular attention to that are going to be on commission agenda this year?
Well, I think that more than anyone else
Hmm.
how fast the commission's priorities can change.
Hmm.
You can set a goal on Monday, and by Wednesday, it's totally different. Um,
Give you whiplash.
yeah, it will. Yeah, it will. You go to sleep feeling good and wake up in the morning like, what happened between,
Hmm. Hmm.
And again, that's another hard part of the job. That's the politics we were
Hmm.
talking about. I think that there's going to be a lot of politics to pay attention to. Um, it will unfold as it has always unfolded. But one of the biggest things that I think that people should pay attention to is the charter review that's getting ready to begin. And for people
Hmm.
that don't know what that is, the city charter is basically our constitution,
Hmm.
and it sets the tone for your government. Without a charter, you don't have a government. This charter is the most important document that our city has. It literally controls everything. And for the first time since 1996, we're going to take a deep dive into the charter.
Hmm.
There's been some reviews before.
Hmm.
I mean, there was a review sometime around the early 2000s, um, but we're going to have a deep dive into it now to check and make sure that it's efficient or that it's relevant to today's times. I'm not really sure what that means. I'm not really sure what changes we need to
Hmm.
make our government more efficient. But the process that the commission has adopted is that we're going to appoint a review committee. Each commissioner and the mayor will have one person appointed to the board, and they will work with the Carl Vincent Institute of Government to look at our charter, to review it, to propose any changes. And then the city would then take those changes and, review them, address them. The legislature will have an opportunity to review them and to address them. And as of the most recent commission action, the changes that are going to be proposed will go onto the ballot sometime in 2026, I suppose.
26.
Maybe
Okay.
November 26th, depending on the timeline.
Maybe the same time we're voting for governor.
Maybe so.
Okay.
Maybe so.
Okay.
We will have opportunity to vote on that on the changes.
Mhm.
But I want folks to really pay attention to this. There's going to be a number of public hearings about the charter. And I'm sure there's going to be some conversations about what the charter is as we go by as well. But we should pay attention to that because any changes to the charter, um, we don't know what it could mean right now. I'm hearing some buzz about what could be presented. Just because I don't want to spread conspiracy theories, I'm not going to share what that buzz is right now. But I really want people to know that they should pay attention, that they should hold their elected leaders accountable, and they should not just pay attention to the charter process, but come to the commission meetings. Come to those meetings, watch them on YouTube so that you can get an understanding of how your government functions because um, it's easy to sell something to you if you don't really know what you're buying.
Right.
So people need to get
Exactly.
out there and really pay attention because it's going to be a very interesting conversation. And you need to know what's happening before this thing goes to a vote.
Okay. Yeah, and for our Local Matters family, I would love to post the information about the town hall
Yeah.
meetings and, even whenever the, charter review, is it committee?
Yes.
Whenever that committee meets, we'd love to post that information
Yeah,
on our Local Matters Facebook
for
page
sure.
and Instagram pages, just
Yeah,
so people know and don't have any excuse not to come out for
that's right.
that.
You
Okay.
have to pay attention. You have to be in the driver's seat.
Yeah, which is the focus of Local Matters, really. We want
Yeah.
you to become a more engaged citizen. One of the reasons that I started it was because things would happen when I was working for the city. Things would happen. Who decided that? But when did that happen?
Yeah.
I would always get asked those questions. And it's like, if you're not watching, yeah, anything can
Anything
happen.
can happen. Anything can happen, and anything does happen. And I don't want to make light of that. When you're not paying attention to what happens in your government, that's the perfect opportunity for politics to take place. But when you're watching, when you reach out to your commissioners and you hold your elected officials accountable, they have a responsibility to do what you say or to have you be a part of the decision making process in some way. We have to make sure that our voices stay relevant and that we're in the room. I always say that the loudest voice in the room will always be the voice of the people.
Mhm.
And so we have to make sure that that becomes a reality and remains a reality. Even in this charter, we cannot allow anyone to take away our representation. We just can't do it. So we have to pay attention. We have to remain focused and we have to make our voices heard.
That's right. Great way to end this
Yeah.
episode. Thank you so much,
Thank
Commissioner
you.
Johnson, for being a guest on Local Matters. We also will be following the state legislature
Yeah.
this year. A lot of
Hmm.
exciting things happening there
For
as
sure.
well. So we appreciate you coming in, and um, everybody understand that local does matter.
Local matters.
Oh yeah.